Imagine waking up every single day with no deadlines and no pressing matter. Yet, your mind behaves as if it's the end of the world and you have the most amount of anxiety that you've ever experienced. Anxiety is a natural human response. It is an emotion linked to alertness and protection. When you face an exam, walk into a job interview, or hear an unexpected noise at night, your brain activates a survival system that prepares you to deal with challenges. This kind of anxiety is normal, temporary, and often useful. It increases focus, motivation, and performance in short bursts. Generalized anxiety disorder, often called GAD, is not the same thing. GAD is a chronic mental health condition defined by excessive, uncontrollable worry that persists for at least 6 months and shows up even when there is no real threat. Individuals with GAD often feel anxious about everyday tasks such as making plans, arriving to class on time, or thinking about the future. The intensity of the worry is disproportionate to the situation and interferes with daily functioning, relationships, and academic performance. Symptoms of GAD frequently include constant restlessness, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension, fatigue, irritability, and trouble sleeping. Instead of short bursts of worry, the anxiety becomes a continuous mental background that never shuts off. People with GAD know their worry is excessive, yet are unable to control it. This lack of control is one of the defining markers of the disorder. Normal anxiety has a clear cause. It begins when you face a stressor and ends once the situation is over. You might panic before a big test, but once the exam is finished, the anxiety fades. With GAD, anxiety appears without a clear trigger, lasts for longer than necessary, and can affect multiple areas of life at the same time. The worries feel constant, unrealistic, and difficult to shut down. Someone with GAD might worry about grades, health, friendships, finances, and the future simultaneously, even when all of these are objectively fine. Normal anxiety is a reaction, generalized anxiety disorder is a condition. College is one of the riskiest periods for developing anxiety disorders. Students face social pressure, academic expectations, financial stress, and major life changes. Lack of sleep, caffeine overuse, and uncertainty about the future makes the brain more vulnerable. Many students misinterpret symptoms of GAD as ordinary stress and wait until it becomes overwhelming. Early recognition is essential because GAD is treatable, manageable, and increasingly common on college campuses. Understanding what generalized anxiety disorder is and how it differs from everyday anxiety is the first step in recognizing it in yourself or in those around you. The sooner students can identify the signs, the sooner they can seek support and prevent anxiety from taking control of their future. Now, I'll be passing things off to Griffin, who's going to cover the specifics for college students.
So now that we know what generalized anxiety disorder is and normal anxiety is, let's focus our scale to just college students instead of focusing on how these types of anxiety affect everyone in general. According to Luxury Psychiatric Clinic, specifically verified by Michelle Dees, a board-certified psychiatrist at Washington University in 2025, generalized anxiety disorder and most forms of anxiety in general sprout from two main stems, these being academic stress and social stress. Academic stress could look anything from stressing out for a test, an assignment, or setting overly high expectations for oneself, whereas social stress could sprout from anything like going off to college for the first time, learning how to manage and navigate independence, or even learning how to make new friends and navigate their social spectrum while at college. So as studies look at generalized anxiety disorder in the college sphere, they found that generalized anxiety disorder, and honestly normal anxiety as a whole, is becoming increasingly common in college students. GAD and social anxiety disorder are two separate things, but they are both the leading causes or leading diagnoses that mental health professionals diagnose toward college students. Well, we've already mentioned academic stress and social anxiety, but we can also touch on separation anxiety, being away from one's home for the first time or commonly the first time, test anxiety, or the idea of preparing for a large event that's coming up on that student's calendar, or even social media and technology anxiety, the idea that spending too much time on social media or even on screens can increase anxiety just by making the student compare themselves to other people they might see online. All of these expectations that people form through these different avenues are extremely overwhelming and oftentimes unrealistic to what the student actually needs to be focusing on, causing that unwarranted anxiety. If you are a college student and you believe that you're suffering from generalized anxiety disorder, please take part in one of the various online surveys to evaluate and get proper diagnosis and learn the next step on how to treat your anxiety. Keep in mind that even though a lot of these factors that I've already touched on sprout from the normalities of college life, generalized anxiety disorder is more of a long-term challenge as opposed to just a short-term haunting. According to the Mayo Clinic in 2025, some anxiety is normal, but if you are experiencing any of the ones of symptoms that Jasper previously mentioned, please seek help through the form of talking to people, exercising regularly, getting plenty of sleep, limiting screen time, and at the same time, bringing everything into reality, which could be done through forms of meditation, keeping a journal, or talking to your loved ones on a regular basis. Bear in mind that there are some increased risks or modes of increased risk that some people might experience when combating generalized anxiety disorder. If you are a part of a family that has a long history of generalized anxiety disorder, you may be at an increased risk. It is also to be noted that Mayo Clinic found in 2025 in their study of generalized anxiety disorder that it's most commonly found in women, more so than in men. This is not to say that men cannot experience generalized anxiety disorder, especially those in college, because it's stressful for everyone, no matter how you might identify. But bear in mind that there are increased risks. More detail can be found on mayoclinic.com in their study of generalized anxiety disorder. If you've made it this far, you've already gotten through the hard part. You've already learned about what generalized anxiety is and how to address it within oneself and the signs that you can look for when trying to address it in yourself or someone you might know. With all this being said, I'm going to pass things off to Ryan, who's going to take you through general ways of coping with generalized anxiety disorder and how college students can live with generalized anxiety disorder to get it off of their frame of mind.
Now I'm going to talk about how generalized anxiety disorder is diagnosed, what treatments actually work, and what to do if you or someone you care about is struggling, especially here at Indiana University Bloomington. So first of all, how is it diagnosed and why does it matter? So when it comes to treating generalized anxiety disorder, the first step is getting an accurate diagnosis. So according to the National Institute of Health, a mental health provider usually starts with a full assessment. So this includes a physical exam to rule out any medical causes and then a mental health evaluation. So this is important because not all ongoing anxiety is generalized anxiety disorder, as was mentioned earlier. So the diagnosis depends on things like symptom patterns, how long the symptoms have been going on, and how much they interfere with everyday life. So once the physical causes are ruled out, a trained professional such as a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or clinical social worker will use interviews and questions about your symptoms to make a diagnosis. So the big takeaway here is don't self-diagnose. A proper evaluation helps make sure that you're getting the right kind of help and the right kind of treatment. So once someone has a diagnosis, the good news is that GAD is very treatable. The most effective approaches fall into three major categories. The first one is therapy, then medication, or a combination of both. So let's start off with the therapy. So the most common form of therapy is psychotherapy, which includes cognitive behavioral therapy. So CBT is considered the gold standard treatment for generalized anxiety disorder. It helps people identify negative thought patterns, challenge them, and replace them with more realistic and balanced thinking. So some of the common CBT techniques include self-monitoring, which essentially is learning to track worries, what triggers you, and what physical reactions come about when you experience anxiety. The next one is relaxation training, which involves deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or guided imagery to calm the body down generally. Then we have cognitive restructuring, which is recognizing when you're experiencing anxiety and learning to, shift those thoughts to more positive and balanced approaches. So the last form of CBT is behavioral exposure, which helps you reduce fear and build tolerance for uncertainty and anxiety. So the next form of treatment is medication, which is either done alone or combined with therapy. So the most common first line of medication are SSRIs and SNRIs. These have been widely studied and are considered safe, evidence-based treatments for generalized anxiety disorder. So sometimes fast-acting medications like benzodiazepines are used for short-term, but they're not recommended for long-term due to dependency risks. So it's worth remembering that medication often requires some trial and error, and what works for one person may not work for another person, which is why, again, it's always important to consult your doctor and consult your psychiatrist to get the best treatment for you. So alongside therapy or medication, there are also other habits that you can build in order to cope with generalized anxiety disorder. So the first practice you can start doing is being mindful and practicing relaxation techniques. So this can involve yoga, going to the gym, or doing some form of physical activity to relax your mind and relax your body. The next is getting consistent sleep. Again, adults are always recommended to get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. So make sure you're always trying to get a consistent night routine going on. Another activity you can get into is journaling and just writing down, what you're grateful for, how your day is going, and just acknowledging and being in tune with your emotions goes a long, long way. Another form of coping can be limiting caffeine and other substance use. And then also make sure you're eating a balanced and healthy diet as often as you can. So because GAD can be chronic or sometimes it comes in cycles, it's always important to keep up with these habits regularly to prevent relapse or worsening over time. So if you recognize these symptoms in yourself or in someone that you care about, such as a friend or a loved one, here are a few things that you can do. The first thing is to talk to a licensed mental health professional. So whether that's on campus or off campus, getting an assessment is always the best way to know what's going on and how to deal with anxiety. So the next is you could consider combining therapy with the healthy coping strategies that I talked about, such as meditating, doing yoga, going to the gym. Such activities normally help not only your body but also your mind, and they go a long way as well. And it's also worth noting that reaching out earlier is always better. Don't wait till it's too long. Don't wait to, try cope with the stress that you're going through. Just always talk to people, always reach out. That way, you'll always be getting the support you needed, whether it's on campus or off campus. So here at IU Bloomington, students have several accessible mental health resources. So the first one is counseling and psychological services, known as CAPS. So this provides confidential counseling services for students who have paid the student health fee, and after that there's no extra fee that's charged on you. And it basically involves basic counseling, talking to therapists, and just getting support that you need while on campus. The next one we have is Timely Care. This is a free 24/7 virtual mental health service provider for IU students. So it's especially useful for nighttime, weekends, or any time that you're off campus and you feel stressed. Just all you have to do is put in your IU username and password, and you'll be assigned someone to talk to in no time. In cases of emergencies, if you know someone or you yourself is undergoing what you think may be immediate danger, always call 911 or call or text 988, which is a suicide and crisis lifeline. So no matter what you deal with, it's always important to remember that you're not alone. There's always people who want what's best for you and want to provide you with support. It's just a matter of reaching out and getting access to these services. Thank you.
Bear in mind that this project was done by college students for college students. We hope that throughout our time here, you learn not only what generalized anxiety disorder is, but also what to look for when potentially looking for or navigating your anxiety, and then finally, helpful resources and ways to cope with generalized anxiety disorder in general. So ultimately, whether you are a college student or are not a college student, understand that this is important and needs to be taken care of. If you're feeling any of the symptoms that we listed beforehand, please reach out to someone. It could be a family member, it could be a psychiatric hospital, it could be a therapist, but understand that it is wrong or not healthy to internalize all these feelings of anxiety. We hope that this project has not only helped educate you on generalized anxiety disorder, but also taught you how to better cope with the feelings and combat the stresses that come along with it. Thank you for your time.